Good morning, my name is Roelof Lamberts. Welcome to today's webinar organized by Logicalis, SMC and ServiceNow. This webinar will be recorded and you will receive a link to the recorded version before the end of this week. Please use the chat functionality if you want to raise any questions. These questions will be answered at the end of this session. And now I would like to hand it over to Rick Burgering, who will be your host for this session. Rick, all to you.
Thank you, Roelof. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Burgering. Welcome to this presentation with the catchy title, IT Service Management, Let's Start with the Basics. Let me give a brief introduction of myself before we head into the presentation. I'm a managing consultant at Logicalis SMC, and I am now working with the ServiceNow product for a little over 8 years. So considering myself an expert implementing the tool, and part of that expertise I would like to use to give you an indication of what you should focus on when you start implementing it. I'm sure that many of you already have a ServiceNow instance running. It could be that you are not yet using ServiceNow, but in any case, starting with the basics or revisiting where you started from is always a good idea. And that is part of the main message of this presentation. What is the basic deal? What is the real deal about starting with IT service management? So let's take a brief look at the definition of service management. And what I put on this slide is the definition as we find it in the common ITIL books, maybe your occasional wiki page or a Gartner definition. And it's stating that IT service management should give you a strategic approach to designing, delivering, managing, and improving the way you deliver your services within an organization, your organization. And so you create it, you really give it to people, you manage it, you keep it under control, and if you are able to, you would be improving it, making it better, faster, more predictable, and better to understand. So effectively, your ultimate goal is to make sure that you give the people the right thing and give them the right technology. Because technology evolves, processes evolve, people evolve, and that's the goal of IT service management, giving the people in IT or from an IT perspective what they need. But what you see is that I put IT between brackets here, and that's because in the last few years, more and more we see a move towards the service management or service automation management instead of only focusing to IT. So whenever I talk about IT, whenever we talk about processes in service management, we talk about more than just only the IT perspective. We try to deliver more services, try to enable more people, and all of this is all possible within ServiceNow. So anything I state right now today in this presentation is also a capability that you could unlock or provide yourself with using ServiceNow. We then take a short look at the picture on the right side, and next to the definition of IT service management, you see that there is some people would say very complete and clear picture, but some other people would say complex image listing all the things you could do when you would use IT service management and ITIL as your process. Here you see a ring around the listed processes as continual process improvement, which is the improving part I just mentioned. You see a whole set of management services, supplier management, problem management, knowledge management, and in the middle you see a continuous move from design to transition to operation. And in the heart you see that statement that lists this as ITIL. Now, all of this is what you would be expected to be doing when you roll out your IT service management tool, when you start using ITIL, but you cannot do it all at once. So let's focus on the key elements that you would use when you first start your ITIL deployment or when you do a revisit of what you have right now. What is important and what makes people happy, what makes your company work the right way with IT service management. And there's also a little illustration of all the processes that you could unlock when you use your ServiceNow tool or any other tool using IT service management. Where do you want to start? Is it your event management? Do you do your transition first, strategy, testing management? People talk about all kinds of service and processes, but what do you want to use? Now, the normal process sequence, as suggested previously, is that you first start with the design. What do you really want to provide? And the next step would be, okay, let's start delivering it. Let's get it to people. Let's get people to use it, find it, consume it. Then you manage it, because you have to keep on providing it. You have to make sure that people actually can benefit from it. You can keep providing it, as in, for instance, your email service. And then later you want to improve it. Maybe you have to increase your storage, maybe you have to increase the speed of delivery, and that cycle will continue. But if you look at what you really need to provide as a first step, the main and most important thing is that you deliver and that you manage. And most of the time you already have a set of services live, a set of services and processes available for your customers, so you don't specifically have to start with the design. And the last step, improving it, it's nice to try to improve it, and most of the time you will get a lot of feedback from your customers about things they want better, or things they want bigger, or things they want in a different kind of way, but they will come to you. So you don't really proactively have to do that as the first step. And so the main two things here are delivering and managing. And here once again we see on the right side that ITIL picture, giving you an indication of where you are, what you should do. And here, also looking at delivering and managing, what we see is that it's all about the operation, so the orange-yellow area in the ITIL part. So we split that up. If we look at delivering and managing, and we would focus on the core strengths and needs of an organization, because that's what we aim for. We want to use the basics. We want to first do what is needed first and then continue to do other stuff later. We focus on the service operation via 5 parts. We focus on the service catalog, because we need to allow people to order the services we provide in a very standardized way. We focus on request management, because we want to manage how the goods or the services are actually delivered to the people in the company, or maybe even outside the company. We use workflow management, because we should predefine how we get anything from A to B, and who does what in which sequence. And an indication in that area is the approval management, for instance. And then step 4 and 5, the CMDB and configuration management. As soon as you start to deliver services, as soon as you start to deliver goods, you want to register them. You want to keep track of what you actually have in store, deliver to users, how they consume it, what kind of specifics are in there. For instance, you want to register how many laptops you have delivered to your end user. And from there, you can control who is owning what, so that you can also help people when they have, for instance, questions about it, or when you have to look up how many laptops you have in your inventory. Then the second part, managing the operation and transition phase, is okay, what do we do when something happens, or when we need to change something? That's incident management and change management. Incident management is used to catch all the questions and issues. So it's the first entry point for any end user coming into your service management area, and they would create a ticket to ask about the services they consume. So it could be that they don't understand something, it could be that something is not working, it could be as simple as a password reset, but it could also be something very complex where some high-skilled analyst is needed to answer the question, or maybe to fix the incident. And change management, as soon as you find that as a result of any question or issue or any proactive measure, you need to change what you are delivering or what you are using, what you are managing, then you create a change. And the change is used to control what you want to change in your service management environment, in your IT environment, and making sure that you do that the right way. And you cannot instantly just create downtime for an email server If someone has a question about storage or the database or a mail transaction that is not delivered, you need to do that in conjunction with work time. Maybe you have people in different time zones, so you need some negotiation, you need some approach, and that's all in change management. So those 7 items, and I think 3 base areas are the most important areas that you should start to use when you want to start with the basics. So one more time, the catalog to show the items to our end users, request management to make sure that all those transactions coming from the service catalog are managed the right way. How do you handle the transactions coming from that catalog? The workflow, coordinating what happens in which sequence, because for the first 3 steps, you basically know what you deliver, when you deliver it, who is approving it, what it would cost, and the how and what, so to speak. Then 4 and 5, those are also connected. The CMDB to store your items, configuration management to make sure that someone is actually tracking down what is happening there. What do we deliver? How are our services laid out? What kind of relationship between those items is there? And how do we really build up our configuration management? And then the last 2, incidents. Something happens, questions, issues, and change management. What if we want to change something in that area? And if you set this up right, if you do this the right way, then to my opinion, to our opinion, you cover around 70% of all the necessary factors that you would first need if you start to use IT service management. And if you do this right, you are working on the customer satisfaction, you are working on providing people with the right things, and you are working with their first visible area of IT service management. Although there is a lot more, and we've just seen that in that picture. Now there's another part that you have to address, because the first bit we're talking about what process to address and what kind of process to implement and what kind of process you should focus on when you target your users. But that's only half the story, because an implementation would also need to focus on the organizational change. So if you focus on the organizational change, you focus on the people really using that process, the training for process users, and education for end users. And I know that even now, in the last few years, it's become more and more with the shift left principles and enablement principles and portal principles, that an end user should just find his or her way around, and it should be very easy and straightforward. But still, you need to make sure that your end user knows where to go and what to do. And as logic as it would seem, it's often a bit different from when you are at home on your couch than being in an office, in a desk chair. All of a sudden you forget how to find things. All of a sudden you forget how to get to a company portal or an intranet and order the correct stuff. So stepping back, the training for process users, you have to teach your agents to use the process well. So you need to make sure they understand what is actually happening in a process. And if your agent would use the process well, you can gain the correct insight in your actual issues. So instead of just process attributes and filling fields, you want your agents to understand what they are doing and why they are doing it. So they need a bit of motivation, and they need training for that. And with that goal, the goal of each process, you help your agent, your process user, also to deliver some extra information and extra benefit as a deliverable in that process. And what is often forgotten is that agents are trained once, incident agents or change managers receive a training about how to use the tool, how to use a process, and what they should report on. But a year in or 2 years in, they have developed their own way of working, which is good, but they often forget or forgot what they really had to do and why they had to fill in certain fields. So you need to make training a returning thing to make sure that you keep the confidence level up. And maybe you can get some improvement points or some improvement areas from your training when people have actually developed a better routine. And then the end users, you need to market your portal. You need to make sure that people know where to find it. So maybe you need to proactively inform them via email. If you are an emailing company, still a lot of companies send a lot of email. But if there are other ways, flyers, posters, promotional actions, whatever you can come up with, use it. Make sure that people are encouraged to use that portal to find their services, find information, and make sure that they really know that we, as an IT service management organization, are there to help them, to provide them with that information. So the statement, the last statement on this slide, and most often it's not the setup of the system, but the knowledge on how to use it that's blocking successful use. So yes, a big part is the process. Yes, a big part is making sure that we connect those processes, that we use the right tool, and of course ServiceNow is the one and only best option in that area, but you have to make sure that you connect your users to it, end users and process users. Now, to give you an indication of what I found to be a traditional setup or a traditional estimate when we start an implementation, and this could also be the case if you do an update or a revisit of your existing processes, there is always an area that is targeting the organizational change and improvement, but it's that part that is just targeting the process owner or a key user or a spoker, someone who knows a bit more. But they are connected anyway, and they are involved also without much difficulty. So that part is in there. And then tooling configuration and process definition, those are the two bigger parts in there. And you can see here what the estimate for tooling and configuration is covering almost 2/3 of this this stack, this image. And I don't think that's the right thing. I think that if we use a best practice estimate, something that we experience real time on a day-to-day basis when we try to implement at certain companies, that if you focus more on the organizational change and improvement, if you save more money to do that, or if you make a better adjustment between the tooling and configuration and process definition, or increase funding and make sure that you do more organizational change, that your results are a lot better. That the actual result of an implementation of any kind of process with any kind of complexity level has a higher success rate. So that's also why we call this a best practice estimate. And this is also targeting that bit I was addressing 2 slides ago about enabling your process user and marketing what you do to your end user. So some questions you could ask yourself, even if you are a very heavy user of ServiceNow at this moment, evaluating your application and processes, is just some test questions. And did you proactively inform your users about the self-service portal? Do they know where they can find knowledge? Do they submit their own questions? Do they come to you when they need something? If you have proof and evidence that that is actually happening, you're doing a good job. But if that's not happening, if there's still a gray circuit or maybe even a black market, as some people would call it, then you're not doing the right thing. If people know that instead of logging a ticket to request for a new password, or instead of going to the service catalog to ask for a laptop, they would open their mail client and send a mail to Piet or Klaas or Henk, and they would just say, hey, I need a new password, can you reset it for me? And they actually get it done, then you have the gray circuit and it's not working. So you need some additional work in that area. So the next question is also an interesting one. Do you provide your user with a catalog with clear services and a delivery overview? So not only give a list of the things you would want to provide, but also how it is delivered and how do people receive it and what should they expect? Are the SLAs clear? That's an important thing for a catalog. Then what kind of training do people need to use your service management tool? I've had companies who said, okay, well, we are not allowing you in ServiceNow even, or in our tool, if you did not receive the proper training. And if the training would only be scheduled in a week or a month from now, go find another thing to do, but you are not allowed in because you need the background, the proper background to use the service management tool. And this is not about the process users, but you need to be very strict and very straightforward. And you could even think about using a 2-year strategy where everyone has to refresh every 2 years, and still just make a simple mark that if someone does not do that, they are not allowed in because it's a core competence of what they need to do. And then the last one, you can have the best service management tool in the world, but if people don't use it, who cares? So you can have ServiceNow, but what if people don't know how to find it? What if people don't know that you are actually providing the best service in the world, or give the best response time on incidents in the world, if people don't come to your tool? So you have to do something to make sure that this is the one and only place where you get your IT questions, issues, requests, and maybe also your improvement ideas in. So just some questions you could ask yourself. There's a small assessment to see if you're doing okay, if you find if you find confidence in what you are actually delivering. And this is something that I would love to hear your answers on in the chat box maybe. Do you actually do this? Do you agree with me? And so to continue on the human part and the fact that you need training, a lot of the times we start with a lot of ambition, implementing a tool, implementing a process, and it's very human. It's a thing that we do. If we start to focus on delivering, then our focus turns inward, and instead of providing the correct routing and the correct information to all the users that need to be involved, we provide pointers everywhere, and everyone would get lost. So it's something that should be a key part of any service management environment, actually, not only part of an implementation, providing those pointers. And you can do it with signs. I like this signpost a lot with all the lost pointers on it. But you could also do it in person. And this is also a nice one. This is the law pointing someone somewhere. Well, in fact, if you are creating or implementing a process, you are the law in some sort of way. And you are enforcing what the process is. You are making sure that people do the things the right way. But although there is a whole big book of all those laws and directions, not everyone has read that book. So you need to make sure that you are there, giving people help, understanding what they need to do, and pointing them in the right direction. And that's what this friendly police officer is doing, actually. And one of the most simple things to provide is a map. And this is a map of a campus area, but it could also be a map of your service management tool. And it would not show houses, but it would show what things to expect, or where you would need to go to ask your question, an indication what you can expect there. It could be a quick reference card, it could be anything in that area. But with something like this, a map, a pre-provided leaflet, or something in an email, as I suggested before, it will help to unlock the potential of your ServiceNow implementation and any kind of process implementation. Now, and of course, doing this, filling in the basics, there's a lot more after this. Building the basics, building on the basics, building the foundation of your service management enables you to do a different kind of process enablement. And so if we look at this picture, we see automation, IT process automation. So instead of doing things manually, you could say, I'm going to integrate, or I'm going to connect with tools outside my system. You can even continue to use business process automation, where you would target other areas than just IT, such as HR, or maybe a software delivery or development. You enable your self-service area, so you have your IT storefront, and that's something that I would do as a first thing. But maybe you could also get more of your enterprise in there. As I know that some companies even have cleaning services or car rental services in their self-service area. And the more you bundle, the more this portal will be used to enable people to ask for everything they want or everything they need, the more people will actually start to use it. And the last bit, consolidation. The fact that you put everything in ServiceNow, and that's the simple statement that's going for all of this presentation, everything we talk about here is being put inside ServiceNow. You globalize and you standardize your service management. And not only that, you allow to connect more processes and more possibilities to this. Suggested HR, stuff like that. So any custom application in business and IT could connect to this. And it could all run in a single system of record. And that's a simple statement, just meaning that we store things only once. There are no replication, no redundant information. If you need a user, you have that one user in your system. If you target a laptop, you have that laptop listed in your system. And that's a very big factor, a very big element if you want to create success in this area, because you only have to invest once to get this done. Now, this is also an interesting one, listing the ServiceNow portfolio. A few slides back I indicated that you should not do everything at once because it could be very overwhelming, and I think that even here, if we look at all the parts of the portfolio, there might be even some parts missing. Not every customer, not every ServiceNow user is using all the processes indicated here. So if we connect back to my suggestion, I would say that you would start with that service catalog. If people are able to request what they want, then you cover a big part of what end users would need, what the business would need, because you need that motivation. You need business motivation to do this. It's not an IT party or an illustration of what we are capable of. We just want to enable the business. Then the second bit is listing your configuration in your configuration management database and use your configuration management to control it. So that's the second step. Then the third part is, well, people might have questions about your services. People might have issues with the hardware or the services you provide. So you create your incident management process. And you connect to your configuration management database, and you would maybe enhance your service catalog to list answers or to give better indication to what you provide. And then the fourth step would be the change management. Because as a result of all this, there will be changes. And even if you are proactively doing stuff, you need to do it controlled. You need to make sure that the impact for a user is low, that the risk is low, that you do the right stuff in that area. And then, and that's something that we might be able to target in the next presentation, you can continue. You can expand to maybe connect asset data. That's the financial part of your hardware or the financial part of your organization. What is it worth? What are my contracts doing on it? And what's the value? Or you could say, I'm going to do problem management. And problem management is the older brother of incident management, where you try to tackle the more difficult issues or problems, or try to find workarounds. And it's very common also to put your continuous service improvement process in this area, because it's not a problem, but the process is a lot similar. Or you could go to project portfolio, and this is connecting back to that design step that was listed as the first step of what we needed to do. What are we delivering now? What should we deliver in the future? And do we need to continue to deliver the services that we're actually providing right now? An interesting idea might be that part of a portfolio for a company could be that you shift to bring your own device for 100%. So instead of having to buy laptops yourself, you ask your employees to do that. Or instead of providing phones and SIM cards, you just provide them with a budget. And that could be a portfolio step, a strategy step. And you calculate the benefit and so on. So this is just an indication of what you could do. So this is what I wanted to share with you in this presentation. And I think the most important things are here in this single slide. Let's start with the basics. The basics are listed in the first few slides. If we look at the processes, manage your change, make sure that people are aware, make sure that people are trained, make sure that you market what you try to provide to your end user, and make sure that you keep on doing that. And as a last step, know what you are doing. And this is maybe a bit of a new one looking at the presentation, but you need to understand the process that you are implementing to be able to gain the most benefit of it. You need to understand how you provide information to people when you are training them to make sure that they understand well. So I think one of the important pitfalls in a lot of companies trying to implement service management processes is that they think they know exactly what they are doing, but it's not a core competence. So make sure that or you educate yourself well and make sure that you know what you are doing, or make sure that you use something that is complete, correct, and straightforward out of the box as a predefined process or a pre-planned way of doing things. But make sure that you own it, that you're certain that you can do it. Those are the three things I would like to put in your mind as a result of this session. And then this last picture, before we move into the questions, I think, the evolution of service, because we now took a quick and short look at the basics. So we are in the left bottom corner, help desk, maybe IT service management indeed, where we do IT operation, because help desk is still just an area where people go and ask questions and then ad hoc help is provided. But what we want to move into, and if you are a small company or a big company, it doesn't really matter. You want to expand into ERP for IT, where you really own your information technology. And maybe you want to go to your service relationship management, where you are not only doing IT stuff, but also doing anything also outside IT, like HR, like I suggested before. And this also opens up a lot of possibilities connecting to parties outside your system. Outsourcing is not a trend anymore, but having your services being provided by an external party is still, but then under your own control. Doing that, you need to be at least in the third or the fourth layer, if we count from the left. So that's also why the arrow goes from the bottom left to the top right, via IT service management to IT service automation to service automation. Well, I hope I inspired you with this. I'm not sure how we are doing timing-wise, but I'm very open for questions. Roelof, do we have any questions?
Yeah, Rick, first of all, thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting, very useful. I have received a few questions already. First one is how to create or fill a CMDB and service catalog. Would you be able to answer that question?
Well, I think if we look at creating the service catalog first, indeed that's an important bit. I think you need to be aware in some kind of way what kind of services you are providing. So it's an exercise that you could do in a very simplistic way, just listing what kind of stuff you provide to your end user. And it could be focusing on desktop services like a laptop, email, maybe phone, software, additional software like VCO, MS Project, stuff like that. But it could also be on other levels. But the most important thing is that you simply list what people ask for. And if you create catalog items for those, so an entry for each thing someone would ask for, you are building up your service catalog. And then the next step would be finding out how you now deliver it, standardize that. And that's the exercise you would want to go through. Yeah. The other part of the question, the CMDB, most of the time, if there is not yet any form of a CMDB, although most of the time I think that there must be a spreadsheet somewhere, but if there is not yet any CMDB, then an entry point could be the financial part of it, because most of the time companies do list what they buy and what they have from a financial perspective, and if you use that as the baseline for your configuration items to be loaded into ServiceNow, then I think you have a 70% starting point. You can expand from that, because the financial part does not cover relationship or maybe specific ownership or any connectivity, but that's something that you add in the configuration management process.
Okay, clear. To that point, once it's being filled and up and running, how do you maintain your CMDB?
Yeah, how do you maintain your CMDB? Well, Most of the time, what we try to aim for, if you look at maintaining a CMDB, is that you create a closed loop. So instead of allowing a configuration manager as a person or a role to create let's say a laptop manually, you do not want to do that. You create a catalog item to have a predefined request for a hardware item such as a laptop, and the delivery of that laptop would result in an automatic registration. So you order it at your vendor, or maybe you have it in your stock, and you would activate it or create it as to be delivered in your CMDB. And then after that, only change management would be allowed to change it. The third bit is that you could use something like discovery to make sure that it is still present in your network and that it's still holding the same information as you put in your CMDB. So instead of just creating it once and then expecting it to be correct forever, every now and then you try to, let's say, ping it, find it, and find information about it to make sure that you still have the most accurate version. And you need a process, part of configuration management in place, to update or expand the information that you get about that laptop. If you see that the location instantly changes from somewhere in the Netherlands to somewhere in Singapore, what is happening? Did someone bring it over? Do you have an office there? Did a move need to be requested, or is that common? That's up to you, basically.
Okay. Completely different question is about training your agent. You talked about this. Mm-hmm. The training itself, should this be done by internal people, or do you recommend a third-party agency to do this, or perhaps work with the train-the-trainer concept?
Yeah, I think there are multiple arguments to use both. If you have a lot of IT staff, if you have a lot of agents that need to be trained, a train-the-trainer principle is a good thing, because there's not it's not that 20 people will show up at the 1st of January and then you could form a class and give them the training. No, that's not the way it works. So you need knowledge locally, I think, to make sure that you can provide that instantly. But a third party, an external party helping you with that training or providing the training every now and then as a refreshment course, or maybe giving you the professional approach in teaching or creating that course, will help. So I think that it should be a mix of both. You should be able to train anyone who would join tomorrow, but you should also keep a professional party involved to provide you with the knowledge about providing the training.
Okay. Another question, you spoke about the normal process sequence. Could there be a different starting points, or?
The normal process sequence, I'm not sure what it is referring to.
It's referring to the starting points, the way you do the implementation and you approach a project.
Yeah, and with the risk that I would contradict myself, I'm not sure if there is one normal process to actually do it. If you would look at my suggestion and focusing at the basics, I think that the sequence of implementing your processes is the most efficient way. But it could very well be that your trigger or your compelling event is not just implementing it and saying, okay, well, let's choose what to do first, but that you have a different kind of trigger to do it. And maybe you have a financial motivation and you have to start with asset management together with configuration management. You have to do that first. And a lot of the times that is also being regarded as the foundation of your service management. Another compelling event could be that you have event management which needs an unlock. That's an area we did not yet speak about, but that could be the first step, and then it would move into incident management, and then you would follow that route. So it varies very much per company or per event. And if you would use a greenfield starting point, which is almost never the case, then yes, I think that the normal sequence as suggested in the process picture I showed would be the perfect way, but I'm not sure if that's always possible.
Okay. Okay, final question for now. Average duration of an implementation?
Yeah.
Difficult one, I guess.
Well, yeah, it depends very much on the size of the company, the amount of users, the amount of training. Let's say that if we follow my suggestion that you need to know what you are doing, and knowing what you are doing means that you know exactly what kind of process you are going to use. So you do not need to negotiate what kind of fields, values, steps you have in a process. Then you could do delivery from a technical perspective in a few months, maybe 2 or 3. You need to make sure that you connect correctly to your company. And then the only thing you would need is the proper time to educate your agents and train them, and make sure you start your marketing campaign. And I know that years and years ago, the suggestion was that you could be up and running in a few weeks, even with ServiceNow. But I think you also need some time to make sure that you bring your company in a motion of change, so that you can anticipate on the fact that things are going to be different. So I think it would be nice to focus on a couple of months. And if it would be the case that you cannot do everything you want in that time, scale down. Maybe you want to focus on everyone involved, but not all the processes, or maybe you want to focus on just parts of the company, rolling out process per company part. But I think the best thing to remember is don't ever try to scope a project that is longer than 6 months between starting and first delivery, because that's going to fail. You need agility in that area to make sure that you're still connecting to what's actually desired.
Okay, great. Okay, if there are any more questions, additional questions, please let us know. Send us an email and we try to answer the question as quickly as possible. Back to you, Rick, for some closing remarks.
Yeah. Well, I put in my slide the next webinars. I'm not sure if we already have the exact date and times, but I'm sure that we will send invites out very soon. I will continue with this. Let's start with the basics presentation in the next webinar, and try to bring you even more information about how to continue with this. There will also be a webinar about transforming your IT with service, focusing on providing the service to your end user, maybe use a portal, stuff like that. And there's going to be a surprise topic, and it's not going to be a surprise all the way until the actual webinar, but we'll focus on things that we find coming from the questions, the suggestions, and the feedback we get from you. So there are at least 3 more webinars to come from Logicalis SMC together with ServiceNow, and I would be very happy if you could be there, or maybe be there with a colleague or someone you know who would also be interested. So thank you very much. I wish you a great day, and yeah, like Roelof said, if there is still any question, or if I triggered some totally different topic with anything I said, please let us know so that we can connect and work together.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.